And we are live, episode 2 of the KNC Basketball Podcast, starting right now, getting you set for Game 6 tonight. Cavs still hanging on there. Like I said, I'm 1 for 1 on the show in predictions. And I also said Klay Thompson was going to go off. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself, not to brag a little bit. Oh, I got to set up my toolbox here. I'm feeling good after that one. And Draymond back tonight. We're in for an interesting one. Lots of storylines we got to discuss here on the show.
Yeah, so many. And it was a good job by Cleveland to get back in it. And particularly on the road like that, they got 2 huge performances, had a big-time guys. It's been impossible to predict, so you give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, absolutely in that regard. And you just look through the stats, and LeBron and Kyrie went off. We all know that, 41 apiece. And I like the shot distribution on their part. LeBron, 16 to 30 from the field. Kyrie, 17 to 24. Extremely efficient for him. But I like that LeBron taking the most shots. Kyrie not too far behind. Kevin Love, though, as much as that performance was inspiring for the Cavs, they're obviously still around. They got the win they needed to get. But a little disconcerting. K-Love, 2 points, 3 boards, none on the offensive end. 4 fouls, 1 for 5 shooting. 33 minutes. I swear, to me, it seemed like Steph Curry, as much as he struggled in that game, it seemed like he scored every time Kevin Love was in his presence. Anyone else, Steph just couldn't hit his threes. But as soon as Kevin Love was switched on to him, and that's, a bulk of the Warriors' offense is creating mismatches, getting guys to switch on to players that have no – but whenever Kevin Love was in that scenario, Steph always score around a horrendous game for Kevin Love, even though they won. But he's starting tonight, which is very concerning for me, at least.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what to think about that. Ty Lue, I think they look at him and he gave them 33 minutes. It wasn't the greatest 33 minutes. Obviously, the stat line wasn't good at all. But I think his plus-minus was plus 18. And his defense, honestly, looking at it, wasn't that bad as you watch the game. He was much improved compared to other games. He's just in a tough spot, being that third fiddle to Kyrie and LeBron, who are both so ball dominant. And he talked about how he just kind of had to be in the corner as a decoy to take pressure off of those guys and clear up the lane because the Warriors didn't have Bogut, they didn't have Draymond Green. So there's no rim protection in there, and it frees things up for LeBron and Kyrie. So if Kevin Love has to do that, I think that's what he's going to do. And if he can give them any kind of offense, they'll be in a good spot, I think.
Yeah, the one thing to make note of, you mentioned that 18 was actually plus 20 for Kevin Love. Plus 20 in 33 minutes. So, you don't – plus minus is tough for me because Klay Thompson carried that team through a bulk of the game, and he had a minus 21. Whereas Steph, we talk about him struggling, I believe his was around minus 11. So I think plus minus is an interesting – who's playing at what point in the game. If a game's already – no, Steph was only minus 6 in 40 minutes. Klay minus 21 in 41 minutes. So I think plus minus is interesting for me. Comes down to who else you're on the floor with. But even so, Kevin Love struggled to do things that, we expect him to do. Look, he doesn't need to go out there and score 20-plus points. He's playing third fiddle on this team. LeBron and Kyrie are the ones that are going to be ball dominant. That's just the way the series has gone. That's just the way their offense runs. They're at their best when those guys are taking all these shots. They're getting into their situations when they can excel. Kyrie, the only thing I would say a little bit of a downside we noticed, there were some times in that game when, as hot as he would dribble the ball into the corner. And they even mentioned on the broadcast, at one point, LeBron literally went up to him and said, that's not when you're at your best. Because when Kyrie tries to set the offense and goes into the corner, that really does not help the team because they're able to zero in on Kyrie. It puts him in a situation where he's got to go baseline. A lot of times he'll turn it over in that situation. But to get back to Kevin Love here, you don't want to force it to him because you got to let the offense flow the way it's been flowing. And LeBron hitting outside shots was especially huge. But at the same time, you have to put him in a position to excel, whether that's getting him more open looks on the three or whether that's putting him in occasional post-up situations. You have to do that. And I do think part of the problem was that Tristan Thompson was in there for 42 minutes. And he played an exceptional game. I was very impressed with the way he played. He had 15 rebounds, 12 defensive, 3 offensive. But the Cavs did not defend well, and really, aside from LeBron, Tristan Thompson was the only one in that game that really seemed to be able to defend with any consistency. So Tristan Thompson has really caught my eye this series in the way he impacts this team. A lot of questions are made about that contract before the season, but he's played very well, and I think that's a lot of the reason why Kevin Love has struggled. But if you're going to put him in the game, if you're going to start him, you have to have a game plan where he fits into it. Otherwise, there's no point in forcing the start.
Right. I think he had 17 touches throughout the whole game. Kyrie had 57, and LeBron had 71. So I think that's a pretty big discrepancy. But talking about Tristan Thompson, he's been an impact guy on the rebounding, particularly. Doesn't give them very much offense. Might get into trouble in terms of foul shooting because he's going to have to go to the line a lot at the end of the games if he's in there. That's somewhere where Kevin Love wouldn't be a problem if you had him in at the end of the game. But going back to Kyrie, it's becoming cliche to say it's a make or miss league in the NBA, but I think he was 17 to 24 or something like that. I think he had an effective field goal percentage of 85%. And when you look at a lot of the shots he took, they're wizard-like shots. They're really tough shots. Klay Thompson was playing some great defense on him for most of the time, and Kyrie just makes some of these buckets, and Klay goes and shakes his head laughing. There's not really anything else he can do, but that's really not sustainable, I don't think. What Kyrie and LeBron were doing last game, without that third guy, like I mentioned, if they don't get support from that third guy, I don't see the Warriors going 3 of 21 from the three in the second half again. I don't think something like that can happen. And even with Bogut out, Draymond coming back makes a big difference in terms of rim protection and perimeter pressure on LeBron. So I tend to lean with Golden State heading into tonight just because I can't see Cleveland repeating that performance.
Yeah, when you mentioned third guy, in Game 3 when the Cavs walloped the Warriors by 30, JR was that third guy in that game. Kevin Love was out with a concussion, and JR dropped 20 in the win. So they do need a third guy usually. I agree with that because LeBron, aside from Kyrie hitting these really dazzling shots that as talented as he is, as skilled as he is, he's not going to hit night in and night out. You know, LeBron went 4 of 8 from downtown. You're not going to get that very often. That's just not the way it's been. LeBron, you know, he 41 points, he had 16 boards. He really was all over the place, and he made his presence felt early. He let Kyrie control the offense while at the same time making sure he was still the most, you know, dominant one out there. You mentioned with the touches, 71 to 57. So I think LeBron did a very good job of that. But you do need a third guy. And if you're going to get Kevin Love in positions for him to succeed, then absolutely. But the way this series has gone, I don't know how I feel about him starting. Yeah, you give him a lot of minutes, but at least from the get-go, you need to establish something because you cannot get behind against the Golden State Warriors. You just cannot. And you know they're going to come out firing with Draymond back in the game. Imagine his mindset. He's going to want the ball early. Klay is coming off a 37-point performance. You need to establish something early. Golden State can get behind and come back. Cleveland, I don't think in this kind of matchup they can. I think they really need to be right there or up from start to finish. They need to be right there. They can't get down by too much because they have the talent, but they don't have the depth that Golden State has to come back. They simply don't have it, and they struggle at times. Golden State, in large part, when they're all there, you never know what's going to happen. They're always in a game with the way they can shoot the three. They're just always in a game. So if you're putting Kevin Love in the starting lineup, I would go with an approach like you did in Game 1 when the Cavs for a while were in that one. Kevin Love was getting a lot of touches in the paint early. And if that's what they want to go with, maybe he was still a little banged up last game. Maybe he's not 100%. Nobody is. It's the playoffs. But even so, you need to have some sort of game plan if you're going with Kevin Love because just putting him in, you know, what they've been doing has obviously not worked. And all it does is limit the team because it makes it harder for Tristan Thompson because Tristan Thompson can only play inside. You cannot have him really more than 10 feet away from the basket because he doesn't do anything out there. You need to space the floor correctly. And the Cavs have struggled with that at times. Their defense has struggled a lot. Even in that Game 5 win, their defense struggled. They need to figure out where to put Kevin to make him successful. And that falls on Tyronn Lue to see if he can do that in his game plan.
Yeah, where he's been successful in his career is getting the ball at the high post and matching up with a guy one-on-one or in the low block. I mean, we know he can shoot threes too, but those are favorable spots for him. And I think he's probably going to have a favorable matchup when you look at who the Warriors are going to have to start. It's probably going to be Harrison Barnes or maybe Festus Ezeli that tries to lock him up. And Barnes has been bad in big games lately. He was 2 for 14 last night, or 2 nights ago, excuse me. And it seemed like every shot he was taking, there was no one within 10 feet of him. So his confidence has got to be low. But I think what it comes down to is if you're Ty Lue, you just trust Kevin Love more than someone like Richard Jefferson at this stage in his career. And I think we've seen Jefferson slow down a little bit after a really good job in that initial game that he started. But I think Love is the guy you trust, and he's shown to be a great teammate, and he's going to be willing to do whatever it takes to win. I just think you give him another chance here, and he gives you the best shot to win, starting there over Richard Jefferson.
Yeah, and it shouldn't come down to stats with Kevin Love because in a situation like this, we talked about, maybe it's just not the best matchup for him. And I think the best comparison, with LeBron teams, Chris Bosh with the Heat, everyone talks about that San Antonio series. I don't remember if it was you on the last time that brought this up, but nobody remembers that in Game 7 against San Antonio, Bosh didn't score a point. I don't know if it was you that brought that up, but I remember hearing that recently. What people do remember is he got that crucial rebound in Game 6, kicked it out to Ray Allen, and the rest is history. People will remember that, and that won them a title. So, priorities here. Yeah, we know what Kevin Love is capable of doing, and we know that if he's on a worse team, yeah, maybe his stats will be a lot more inflated. But if Kevin Love's going to help you win, you put him out there. I just think that after what we saw last game, and we don't know what's going on in the locker room, maybe he's the kind of player that you need to put him back out there for him to give you anything. Maybe if he comes off the bench, he won't be effective. But the way he was last game, you're not going to be able to win with the Warriors at full strength. Now, the other thing, you mentioned Bogut for a second. I don't think that's as big a deal as people are going to make it out to be because he hasn't played all that much this series. He's been effective in limited minutes, but he hasn't played more than 15 minutes in a game this series. He's not played that many minutes. And even in that Game 2, when he had 5 blocks in like 15 minutes. He had 4 in the first 8 minutes of the game. He didn't play that much. He got a little banged up in that one. So Bogut's out there, but what it does do is it tests your depth. Because even if he's not giving you that many minutes, that's one more guy on the bench you got to have come in the game and give you those 10-plus minutes. We know what Festus Ezeli can do, and I'm sure the Warriors are going to, deploy that what they call the death lineup with Draymond at the 5, Barnes 4, Iggy at the 3, then Clay and Steph. But that's one more guy on the bench who's going to have to give you extra minutes, whether that's Varejao, Spates, who didn't play well last game. They're going to have to go down to the depths of that bench, and the Warriors are a team that can get away with it. I don't think the Cavs can. I just think the Warriors have that depth that Cleveland simply lacks, aside from the first few guys off the bench. But if you're the Warriors, it does test you a little more. Bogut's not a huge loss, but it's a notable loss, and it's definitely something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, typically when the Warriors go with this death lineup, Kerr has done it in spurts of 9-10 minutes at a time. He doesn't typically go for 30-40 minutes in a game, and I think that's what he's going to have to do tonight, because as small a role as Bogut's played in terms of minutes, I think his presence inside is a real thing. And you said all those blocks he had. There's just a different scenario. When you're LeBron James and Draymond Green's on you, first of all, you have to beat a guy who's a defensive player of the year. And then when you get there, there's a 7-foot shot blocker. So I think that really wears LeBron down. And we've seen that Steve Kerr doesn't really trust Festus Ezeli in these playoffs. And Varejau's just out there flopping. I mean, he's given them some good minutes in terms of energy and stuff like that, but it's not the same as having Andrew Bogut out there. And I think that death lineup's going to really have to do some work as a result.
And the one thing I think that really is an underrated storyline here is let's not forget Draymond Green coming back one technical away from missing a decisive Game 7. So, you can have a little fun with this one in terms of game plan, but the way I see it is you got to take advantage of that. And Draymond, he lacks control at times. He is that vocal leader. The Warriors rely on that, but he's got to keep himself in check tonight because he knows, and I'm sure he's been told this many times, I'm sure he's told himself this, you cannot afford that one technical because should Cleveland win, you're going back home without the guy who, we've said it, many people have said it, arguably the most impactful player because of the versatility he brings to the table. So why not, if you're Cleveland, take advantage of that. Don't have LeBron do it, but Why not bring Delly off the bench for a few minutes? Let him mess around, do what he does. He's a scrappy guy. Let him get in there. Let Draymond get a little upset there. So Draymond will have to keep his emotions in check tonight. But back to that depth lineup, should I say, though, that will be tough. We'll see how Cleveland defends it. I don't know how Kevin Love fits into against that depth lineup. I think that's a tough one for him. I think if they deploy that, unless Kevin Love is back to his usual self tonight, making an impact, if he plays anywhere like he did last game, you can't have him on the floor against that kind of lineup because that's as effective as they come. Tristan Thompson is quicker than a lot of people make him out to be. You see him on the floor, he has the lateral quickness to match up with Draymond to an extent, and I think you have to let him do that. And, sometimes Draymond Green shooting a three is not the end of the world. He can obviously hit the long ball, but sometimes that's a lot better than letting him get inside, take a few dribbles inside, and then dish it around, and you see the ball flying around the perimeter. Everyone's chasing, nobody can stop, and eventually someone's hitting an open three or an uncontested two. So sometimes it is better to give Draymond that three, depending on how the rhythm is flowing and how his shot's falling. But Kevin Love, I don't know how he'll match up against that depth lineup, and that I think is arguably the most interesting storyline, how the Cavs match up with that, especially with Draymond. Imagine he'll have a little bit more of an edge tonight with obviously being a closeout game and him coming back from that suspension.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to talk about what Love's role is actually going to be because Cleveland, I've harped on it several times, they need offense from a third guy. And if you're going to have him, Thompson, and LeBron on the floor at the same time, and Kyrie Irving, it's kind of hard to think that Kevin Love's going to be the guy involved getting the basketball. And his deficiencies on the defensive end, at least in terms of switching, which I think is going to be the real problem because the individual matchups aren't as big of a deal, but the Warriors set so many screens. They do all kinds of cross-matching that he's going to be set up on Kyrie and Clay. And I think Harrison Barnes is the guy he'll guard one-on-one initially, but having to switch on all those guys is going to be difficult. I tend to think he's going to step up. I just feel like I don't think he's going to be the reason they lose if it happens, just because their offense, they just don't flow through him, and I don't think they give him enough opportunities to show himself. He only took 5 shots the last game. He's not turning the ball over. I mean, he looked bad, I think, game 4, but I think he showed a lot of positive signs this last game, and he's going to have to play big minutes because as deep as Golden State is, Cleveland's not. So they don't have options really. Dellavedova hasn't done anything. Jefferson's digressed. Mozgov doesn't play. Shumpert can't play offense. So he's their option. I mean, they need something out of him. They're paying him a lot of money, and I think he's going to be there. So it's all about what he does on the basketball court and what he produces tonight.
Yeah, talk about lack of depth for Cleveland. Only 2 players playing 10 minutes or more in that last game. And what is good is that, and especially when you talk about matching up with a depth lineup, RJ did not play that many minutes. He only played 14 in that win. And because they simply didn't need him in the fourth quarter. They already had and that's good. You rest him.
Too.
Yeah, you have Richard Jefferson in there because he will be able to match up with that lineup very well. We've seen that. He has that versatility with his size and his ability. He can fight some guys for some rebounds, and he has the ability to match up with some of those guys. He can match as need be. He can do that even at his age. So I think you utilize that, and I guess you have, depending on how he plays, and if Love doesn't come to the table, then at times you take Kevin Love out and you let Richard Jefferson in that lineup with the starters and see how he does. But for right now, I guess that's what Tyronn Lue's going to do. He's set on that, so we'll see. Kevin Love will need to be a factor, and I think that's the general consensus here. Kevin Love is going to need to be huge in this one, not necessarily in terms of his point production, but in terms of being able to handle switches should they come his way and being able to facilitate the offense, move the ball around, and hit threes when they come to him.
What do you expect out of Steph Curry tonight? There's kind of been a lot of talk about how his play has been bad. I mean, I think he's hurt, but I mean, that's not an excuse at this point. But I think he needs to have a good game, too, to kind of redeem himself here.
Well, yeah, he does, and a lot of spotlight will fall on him. I do think he is hurt, and again, you don't like to buy that, but at the same time, he's missing a lot of shots he normally makes,
And I
and
think
he's not taking into the paint nearly as much as we've seen him do it when he's at his best. So there definitely is a lot of validity to these rumors that his knee is not right. He's on Rio because of it, and people not playing in Rio is due in large part to, obviously, there's the Zika virus, and there's just the risk of, potentially injuring yourself a la Paul George, and then there's just the fact that, you want to get some rest in the offseason. But I do think there's a lot of validity to that maybe, he's not 100%. Maybe he's like 70, maybe 60%, but Steph's still able to do enough. And in a situation like that, is he that injured? Why is he taking more shots than Clay? Clay was so great the other night. Why is Steph should be making sure Clay gets the ball more often? In a situation like that, as the point guard, if your shot's not falling, yeah, you want to be aggressive because you are the MVP. But why are you not facilitating a little better? And I think Steph will need to do that more tonight. Yeah, maybe his shot is not what it is regular season. He shot 33% from three last game. He's been 40% from three in the playoffs, 45 in the regular season. So you see the significance. But at the same time, you need to distribute the ball better if you're Steph Curry. And we'll see what he does, especially with Draymond in there to, ease the pressure off him a little bit, free him up more offensively. He'll need to do that. And I think distributing is what Steph's biggest challenge is going to be tonight, making sure whoever's hot is getting the ball. And if your shot's falling, yeah, by all means, keep it coming. But if he's a little off offensively, he's not able to be as aggressive, take it to the rack, that's fine. But you have enough guys that can help you out there, especially with the way Iguodala is even playing right now. You got to move the ball better. And I think that's one of the things that led to the Warriors' demise in that Game 5 is down the stretch, Clay didn't get enough shots in the fourth quarter. I forget exactly how many he got, but it was not a lot, and nobody was there to help him. The ball wasn't moving like we're used to seeing that Warriors offense move around. So that's going to be the biggest thing. I think that all starts with Steph Curry.
Right, that seems to happen a lot. We see Clay go off for these 25-point halves, and then you just don't see him get the ball anymore, which is bizarre in an offense that is so free-flowing and there's so many chances for him to get involved. But going back to Curry's injury or whatever at this point, he needs to make crisper passes and really play smoother in this offense because he's throwing these lobs that are just getting intercepted, passes that he's made casually in the past that just aren't working right now in the finals. And much of their downfall last game is simply missing open shots. I think their reporter for ESPN, Ethan Strauss, said they missed 15 were considered wide open shots, which is like 4 or 5 feet or more of space. So I don't think they're going to continue to miss this many shots. But another one of their downfalls, taking so many three-pointers, is when they get behind, they come down, and we saw Clay chuck up some really bad shots. They kind of try and get it all back at once. And Thompson, as good as he is, occasionally he'll take that 25-footer fading away that misses everything, and then it leads to a LeBron fast break. And, you mentioned they can get behind because it's easy for them to hit a couple threes, but if they miss a couple, they're out of it just as easily, I think.
It's true, and I think that the Cavs might be the best transition team in the league. As great as the Warriors are in every facet of the game, there's nothing like a Cleveland Cavaliers fast break, especially when Kevin Love is making those crisp outlet passes that are really just a thing of beauty to watch from a big guy. But we're going to wrap this one up right now. We'll make our predictions, and we'll get ready for the game tonight. I want to see a Game 7. I'm feeling good after the Game 5 prediction. I'm going to go with Cleveland, and I don't think Draymond will pick up a technical. I think he'll come close, but I think he will keep his emotions in check to an extent. And if that's the case, I do see the Warriors winning the series. As long as Draymond's in there Game 7, I don't see them losing a Game 7 at home.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. It'll make it more interesting. I just think Golden State's lost 2 games in a row one time, and that was Oklahoma City last round whenever they played them. Mm-hmm. I just think LeBron's got to be worn down. 41, he played one of the best performances of his career and one of the better playoff performances we've seen. He was so efficient, got everyone involved, took care of the basketball. Kyrie Irving is not going to shoot 75% again. That's just not going to happen. I don't trust J.R. Smith. I don't trust Iman Shumpert. And unless Kevin Love scores 20 points, I don't think they're going to pull it out. The one thing I will give them the edge on is their home court has been awesome. Their fans have been great. So I think if they get out to a hot start, they're going to have a good chance. but I'm going to take Golden State to repeat in Game 6 in Cleveland for the second year in a row.
Real quick, one last prediction, I think. We talked about him probably the most in the podcast today. Kevin Love. Let's give him an over-under on points. I think we'll set it at 14. Over-under 14 points for K Love today. You know what? I'll be generous. As much as I've not been confident with the way he's been playing, we'll give him over 14. I think he'll have himself a decent game tonight.
I'm going to go with a push. He's going to get exactly 14.
Push. I like that. That's a very smart prediction. I think 14 was a good line I set there.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is the end of episode number 2 of the KNC Basketball Podcast. Connor's got to go hit the links right now, playing a little golf before he sets down to watch game number 6. I'll be watching game 6. Hope you will too. Thank you for watching and listening to our podcast.